Hi everybody, it's Alex Newton from K-lytics, today with the Kindle market trends in August 2019, so let's have a look. Let's dive right into our trend watch where we look at the performance of the various Kindle bestseller lists. If you're not a member or first time here, there's no need to take notes. If you're not a member, you can download one free copy here at k-lytics.com/free report. That's k-lytics.com/free report with the main data on the main Kindle categories this month. The top Kindle bestseller lists in August 2019 continue to be literature and fiction, romance, mystery, thriller, suspense, science fiction and fantasy, then followed by nonfiction, teen, young, adult. Children's ebooks continue to be surprisingly strong on the back of some heavy advertisement by, I think, toy manufacturing companies that have some, brand related kids book out there. And then we have a whole number of non-fiction genres coming more as niche markets here. Now in fiction, if we start with the romance genre, very stable performance. You see it's always been fluctuating between sales rank 100 and 150 throughout over the last 18 months for the top 100 titles, month in, month out. So very interesting. But once you dive onto the subcategory level or sub level, some trends become more visible. Just take this one as an example. Romance, paranormal, vampires. Now, who would have thought that? After Twilight, 10 years ago, then in the book market, Bella Forrest Shades of Vampire a couple of years back, we see yet another rise here in paranormal vampire romance. If you do go into the bestsellers, it's obviously not all vampire romance titles, but the books that did drive the trend to a large degree, let's have a look, are amongst a couple of other titles, the new Harley Merlin series by Bella Forrest. Very strong performance throughout this bestseller list and being a main driver of the upward trend that we just saw. So if we plot romance, paranormal, vampires on our K-lytics strategy map, the yellow dot is that very category. The further up it is, the higher the sales. The further it is to the right denotes the number of titles. So you see it's here in the hot mainstream market, but it's still below 20,000 titles. Not a niche, but one of the smaller mainstream markets with the average sales rank here around 398 and category size 15,600 titles. And if you want to have a full view of the complete paranormal romance market as it stands right now, I recommend you have a look at the new Paranormal Romance Market Report 2019, which we just published. In the members area, you go to Custom Research Reports, the Custom Report tab, and you find it right here, the August 2019 edition, just below the Mystery Thriller Suspense report, which just came out. Another interesting one here, romance, historical romance, Scottish romance. Now the trend line has here, or the category sales have their ups and downs, but if you put a trend line through it, we've seen a 31% increase in the average sales rank over the last 12 months. If we look at the position of the genre on the K-lytics strategy map, we see this is more a niche market. Why? Sales are a little lower than paranormal vampire romance. Average sales rank across the top 20 titles measured over time around 1,313. The category size, however, is just here between 5,000 and 6,000 titles, 5,634, so much less competitive. Moving into mystery, thriller, suspense, I think good news here, because after a bit of a decline towards the start of the year, we now see the trend here, the green mathematical trend line through the blue, hopefully back a little uptick here towards August 2019 again. And the big question is always whether this uptake from the summer carries into the fall. So let's have a look here. From all the various subgenres, the most interesting development we saw in the category medical thrillers. We see here a improvement of 49% in sales rank improvement as a trend over the last 12 months. It's also an interesting niche market with the sales, average sales rank around 1,665, and the category size here just scratching at the 3,000 English-speaking titles mark. In the very bestsellers, you not only find medical thrillers per se, but, we have here pandemic, also a little bit going into post-apocalyptic, but there are a whole number of thrillers with medical main characters here. Take, for example, Dr. Schwartzman series by Daniel Girard. A whole number of books in here in this bestseller list. Definitely worth having a look at. Also, Kendra Elliott's books, a lot of them up here. We talk about this and a whole number of other trends in our just published Mystery Thriller Suspense seminar, which in its August 2019 edition is now covering 137 Kindle categories down to the level 4, level 5 subcategories. For the members, just click here on you should find the link in the sidebar, or just click onto the custom research tab to get to all these individual reports. Also good news for science fiction and fantasy as a whole. Also here, similar movement as we've seen in Mystery Thriller Suspense after a bit of a dip start of the year. We see here a constant upward motion again in the sales level of the science fiction and fantasy bestseller lists. Also here I just picked one of the categories that showed a particular upward trend here. 44% sales rank improvement over the last 12 months for science fiction and fantasy/humorous. Let's have a look at what's behind it. A lot of books that have been driving the trend are urban fantasy books, particularly action and adventure oriented urban fantasy books that have carried the most weight in driving up this whole category here. All right, and if we take a look at where it is positioned on the strategy map, it is particularly attractive also for ranking purposes, because we see here the average sales rank around 2,236 and the number of titles 1,728. So you see it's still below the 2,000 title threshold. So in our terminology, it's a hot sell because it's sky high sales compared to the number of titles in that category. Another thing we reported already in the last report, but just to show how sustainable it's been, is Dungeon and Dragon literature, GameLit, lit RPG trend. It seems to, stabilize and level off here now at a sales rank of around 4,000 to 5,000. For those of you who are into game literature and literature role-playing game books, have a look at the report we published just in April. It goes very deep into the genre. What many people don't know is that 2018, Steven Spielberg's adaptation of Ready Player One, the book was, in 2018, the most sold fiction book on Amazon. And also, this is what I showed last time around already, the Dungeons and Dragons category in particular. Very, very small. Okay, and just to drive the story home, also in teen young adult, after a bit of a decline, we see a upward motion again and again. It's the same driver as we've seen in science fiction and fantasy. You see here this very strong upward motion of the Kindle bestseller list, fantasy, wizards and witches in teen young adult. A very attractive hot sell market right now, with less than 1,000 titles in the category and sales rank 1,300. And although you find a whole number, or actually all of the Harry Potter books in there, the main reason for the upward motion when we looked at it was not the Harry Potter books in it, but the combination of, Harley Merlin books by Bella Forrest, as well as the trend of academy romance books, academy urban fiction books, where we see urban fantasy meets Harry Potter, if you will. So a lot of titles that have the word academy in the book title itself, and we will have a look at academy romance in a special report very soon. All right, I'm not going to go into nonfiction here in this month. On the grander scheme of things, we see here a stable performance of literature and fiction overall, and the more oscillating, the more fluctuating performance of nonfiction below it. But there you can imagine you really have to look into individual niche markets. Just last not least, a couple of comments on pricing, the overall price trend. Good news for romance ebooks. If we go here and cut through the ups and downs, we see a slight upward trend in romance ebooks prices, with a new high here in August 2019, where the average price across the top 100 hit the $4 marks, which is exceptionally high in this genre. And we only had a similar price point last August, as you see here. Prices in mystery, thriller, suspense, pretty stable and high up there, fluctuating between $5 and $6 in the top 100 range. And also the sci-fi and fantasy ebook prices slightly going upward, ever so slightly. I mean, you look at the scale, you know, from 450, you know, it's been breaking through the 550 mark in May this year. Now it's back down a little bit, but if you put a trend through it, we see a slight upward motion here too. So overall, you know, ebook prices seem to be recovering, and my hypothesis behind it is, you know, many of these titles, people put advertising dollars in them, and so they say, well, whether I put the advertising dollar into $3.99 or $4.99 book, better to go for $4.99 as a price point to make a return on the advertising spend. Of course, you also have promotion prices in advertised books, but barely anyone is going below $2.99 for the advertised books. All right, so much for today. If you're not a member yet, I recommend you join us at K-lytics.com. That's K-lytics.com. This is Alex Newton from K-lytics, ebook market intelligence for success.